chosen one. Somewhere between the life you were supposed to live and the life you are actually living, you made a decision. A quiet one, maybe even a frightening one. You looked at the plan, the one that had been set out, the one that made sense to everyone who knew you, and something in you said, "This is not the whole story." And you moved. You did not wait for permission. You did not wait until the path was clear. You moved before the road appeared, and you built the road while you were walking it. And I need you to hear this today, because what I am about to say is the thing that was placed on my heart specifically for you in this hour. What you created was not a consolation prize for leaving the original plan. It was the plan that required the original one to dissolve first. The plan you built from scratch, from silence, from the ruins of what came before that plan, did not just survive. It is the one that carries weight in the unseen realm, the one that has drawn attention to your name in the places that matter, not with disappointment, not with confusion, with something that, if I were allowed to name it honestly, would sound like recognition, like wonder. You actually did it. The building of the new plan, the faithfulness to an inner knowing when every external signal went quiet, the audacity to remain. And today, we are going to understand the full architecture of what you built and what heaven has been saying about it ever since. But before we go any further, I want to tell you what this conversation holds for you today, because I do not want you to move through it quickly. By the time we reach the end of this, you are going to understand the exact mechanism behind why your inner compass rejected the original plan and why that rejection was protection, not failure. You are going to receive the name for what you are, the specific kind of person who builds roads that did not exist before they walked them. And you are going to leave with a framework you can use immediately to see the full shape of what you created, because I do not think you have been allowed to see it clearly yet. Stay with me. What is coming in this conversation is worth every minute. Now, let me take you back to a moment. Not a dramatic one. Not the kind of moment that announces itself with a flash of light or a clear voice from above. A quiet moment. Maybe it was in the middle of an ordinary day, sitting somewhere familiar, doing something routine, and a feeling moved through you that you could not quite name. It was not sadness, exactly. It was not fear, exactly. It was something more like a wrongness, a low, persistent hum of, "This does not fit anymore. This was not built for who I am becoming." Maybe the plan was a career path you had been faithful to for years. Maybe it was a version of your future that other people helped you design, and you wore it because it made sense, because it was logical, because the people who loved you could see the shape of it. Maybe the plan was one you built for yourself, carefully, intentionally, and somewhere along the way, even your own design stopped feeling like it belonged to you. And one day, or maybe gradually, over many days, you stopped following it. You know which moment I am talking about. You carry it with you. And what I want to do first, before anything else, is name exactly what you were experiencing in your body and your spirit in that season. Because most people have no framework for what happens when a chosen one outgrows a plan. And what happened in you was not random. The first thing you felt was a restlessness that sleep could not fix. Not the restlessness of someone who is bored or ungrateful. A deeper kind, a bone-level kind. You could be completely still on the outside, and there would be this movement happening underneath, like something in you was trying to turn in a direction that the rest of your life had not caught up to yet. People around you probably did not notice it, but you felt it constantly. The second thing was a changed tolerance. Things that used to be fine conversations, environments, ways of spending time started to feel like they were costing you something. Not because they were bad, because you were different. You would walk into a room that used to feel comfortable and feel, without being able to explain it, like the walls were slightly too close. You started protecting your energy not because you became cold, but because certain spaces started to feel like they were pulling something out of you that you needed for something else. The third thing was the dreams. More vivid than usual, often searching for something, a room you could not find, a door that kept moving, a place you knew existed but could not reach. Your sleeping mind was doing something your waking mind was not ready to process yet. It was rehearsing, it was preparing, it was reaching toward a shape of life that had not materialized yet, but was already real somewhere in the unseen. The fourth thing was the moments of absolute clarity that arrived without warning. A conversation overheard, a song at exactly the right moment, the same number appearing in a pattern you could not dismiss. These were not coincidences arranged by chance. They were confirmations from a deeper intelligence, small signals saying, "You are on the edge of something, pay attention, do not dismiss what you are feeling." And the fifth thing, the one that stayed with you longest, was a knowing that arrived quietly and refused to leave. Not a loud voice, not a vision. A settled, aching, undeniable certainty that what you were holding was too small for what you were carrying, and that if you stayed inside it much longer, something essential about who you were would begin to disappear. This is what it feels like when a chosen one is being called out of a plan that was designed for a smaller version of themselves. And here is what I need you to receive right now in this moment. What felt like recklessness was actually discernment. What felt like failure was actually a refusal to shrink. What felt like losing your direction was actually outgrowing the map. What felt like confusion was actually the clearing that happens before a new foundation is poured. What felt like falling apart was actually the dissolution of a structure that could no longer hold what you were becoming. You were not broken. You were breaking through. I want to tell you about a man who understood this, not in theory, in his bones, in his blood, in the years he spent in a place he did not choose. His name was Joseph. And the original plan for his life, the one his family could see, the one that made sense from the outside, was not the plan that heaven had authored. The plan that heaven authored required something radical. It required the original plan to be stripped away entirely. It required a pit. It required years of silence in a place where no one could see what was being formed in him. It required the kind of wilderness where there was nothing left to perform for, nothing left to prove, no map and no audience and no applause. And it was in that wilderness that the real Joseph was built. Not the Joseph who was his father's favorite, not the Joseph who wore the coat that made his brothers jealous. The Joseph who could stand in the throne room of a nation and be exactly what that moment required, because everything that was not essential had been burned away in the formation. Your wilderness was different in its details, but the mechanism was the same. Think of it this way. You know what a navigation system does when you take an unexpected turn. It does not shut down. It does not give up. It does not tell you the journey is over. It recalculates. It looks at where you are trying to go, and it finds a new route, often one that did not appear in the original directions. Recalculating is not failure. Recalculating is intelligence responding to new information, and you are new information. The moment you left the original plan, something far greater than a navigation system began to recalculate on your behalf. And what it found, the route it mapped for you, is larger than anything the original plan could have reached. Most people stop the story here. They call it resilience. They call it pivoting. They call it making the best of a difficult situation. But what happened in you was not just psychological. Something structural shifted, the kind of shift that does not reverse. And I want to show you exactly what that shift was, and why the science of your own mind and something far older than science were both working in the same direction when you made that choice. Because here is what I have not yet told you about the plan you built. There is a reason your inner compass rejected the original one. Not a vague spiritual reason, a specific, documented, scientifically observable reason. And when you understand it, when you see what was actually happening inside your brain in the season that led to your decision, something is going to shift in how you understand everything you have been carrying. Let me show you what I mean. There is a specific type of brainwave that neuroscientists have been studying for decades. They call it the gamma wave. And what they have found about it is remarkable, not just scientifically, but in a way that speaks directly to what you experienced. Gamma is the fastest brainwave the human mind produces. It operates at the highest frequency of all brain states. And the research coming out of MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and Princeton consistently links it to the same cluster of experiences: heightened intuition, creative breakthrough, pattern recognition that feels almost supernatural, and what researchers call the flow state, that rare condition where thinking becomes effortless, where the right idea arrives before you consciously search for it, where you feel unmistakably aligned. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years of research in this field, describes gamma as a God-given brainwave, not metaphorically, structurally. Every child is born with robust gamma activity. Watch a child learn the speed, the curiosity, the fearless pattern making, and you are watching gamma at full strength. You were that child. There was a season in your life when learning felt effortless, when your intuition was sharp and reliable, when ideas arrived fully formed, as if from somewhere beyond you. That was not imagination, that was gamma. But something happens as we grow up. Dr. Lake calls it the decline effect. The structures of modern life, the educational systems built on compliance, the social environments that reward predictability over perception, the constant low-grade noise of survival mode living, these things do not just distract us, they suppress gamma. Literally. The EEG readings of most adults show a dramatic reduction in gamma activity compared to their childhood brain states. And here is the part that matters most for you. The people who feel this suppression most acutely are not the people with the smallest gifts. They are the people with the largest ones. Because the gap between who they were designed to be and who the world has shaped them into is the widest. That restlessness you felt, that bone-deep wrongness when you looked at the original plan, that persistent sense that you were built for something larger than what was being offered to you, that was not anxiety. That was your gamma trying to speak through years of suppression. Your God-given frequency was still operational underneath everything the world had layered on top of it, and it was rejecting a plan that was designed for a suppressed version of you. Now, when I understood this, when I began to see that the reason certain chosen ones cannot stay inside plans designed for smaller versions of themselves is not spiritual weakness, but neurological truth, I started looking for whether there was a way to recalibrate, to deliberately restore what the decline effect had suppressed. Dr. Robert Lake spent over 3 decades asking the same question. And what he developed after extensive research and clinical testing is an audio track, 7 minutes, designed using a technology called brain entrainment, a process where specific sound frequencies guide the brain into targeted wave states. Not meditation, not mantra, not a practice that requires years of discipline. 7 minutes of audio, listened to through headphones, that guides the brain into sustained gamma activity. He calls it the genius song. I want to be clear about what this is and what it is not. This is not a spiritual shortcut. This is a tool, a recalibration device for a frequency that was always yours, that the world suppressed, and that you have every right to restore. The 18,366 people who have used this tool did not gain something foreign. They recovered something native, their intuition sharpened, their decision-making clarified. The synchronicities, those moments of perfect alignment that used to feel random, began arriving with a regularity they could not explain any other way. Here is the practical reality. If you wanted to access clinical-grade gamma recalibration through traditional methods, you would be looking at biofeedback therapy at approximately $300 per hour. Professional-grade biofeedback equipment for home use runs close to $7,000, and the discipline-based approaches, the meditation practices that can eventually cultivate gamma activity, require months, sometimes years, of consistent effort before producing measurable results. Dr. Lake compressed 3 decades of that research into a 7-minute audio track. The original price of the Genius song is $49, already a fraction of what any clinical alternative would cost. For those watching this specific conversation today, the price has been set at $39. That is not a promotional gesture. Dr. Lake's stated purpose has always been to reach the people who most need this recalibration, not the people who can afford clinical alternatives. For those who feel drawn to this tool, you will find the information in the pinned comment below. When you access it through that link, you receive the track itself, along with 4 additional resources at no extra charge. An audio track designed to help children access the same focused, confident brain states. The original book that inspired the film The Secret, the more practical, less mythologized version, currently priced at $20 on its own. A guided visualization for 4 areas of life: financial clarity, relationships, health, and purpose, and an infographic summarizing the 5 most consistent practices of people who have successfully rebuilt their lives. And if you use it and feel no difference, if your intuition does not sharpen, if the flow state does not return, the guarantee is unconditional. Full refund. No conditions. The only risk is not trying. One important note, because this matters: there are counterfeit versions circulating online. Platforms, search engines, streaming services. Files that use the name but contain none of the brain entrainment technology. Regular audio tracks sold as the real thing. The only source that carries the authentic technology, the complete bonus package, and the money-back guarantee is the link in the pinned comment. Not Amazon, not Spotify, not a search result. The pinned comment. If what I have described resonates with you and you feel drawn to investigate it, that is where to go. For those who feel that call, I will meet you there. And for all of us, let us continue, because whether or not that tool becomes part of your path, what I need you to understand is this: your gamma was already speaking to you when you left the original plan. You were not abandoning your purpose. You were following the deepest signal your body and mind knew how to produce, and that signal was right. Now, I want to show you something that the ancient world understood long before neuroscience had language for it. There is a word in the original Greek that most people have never encountered. The word is kairos, and it is different from the word most of us use when we talk about time, which is chronos. Chronos is clock time, sequence, minutes, hours, calendars, deadlines. Chronos is the time that the original plan was built around, the timeline that made sense to everyone looking at your life from the outside. Kairos is something entirely different. Kairos is the appointed moment, the intersection where what has been forming underneath the surface finally breaks through, where what has been gestating in the dark finally becomes visible. Kairos is not about sequence, it is about readiness. It is not about the clock, it is about the convergence of preparation and possibility at a specific, unrepeatable moment. When you left the original plan, when you chose the uncertain path over the predictable one, you were not moving outside of Kairos. You were moving inside of it. The moment you built something new was not a departure from divine timing. It was divine timing expressing itself. The appointed moment for a new thing was always going to require someone brave enough, awake enough, and willing enough to move first. And you moved. And there is a second word I want to give you. This one from ancient Hebrew. The word is shalam. Most people translate it as restore, and in surface meaning, that is accurate. But in its full depth, shalam does not simply mean to return something to its previous state. It means to be made complete, to be paid back not the exact amount that was taken, but with interest. Think of it this way. If a court found someone guilty of theft and ordered restitution, shalam would be the standard by which they were required to repay not the 100 that was taken, but 500. Not equivalence, excess, abundance above the original loss. You gave something up to build the new plan. You know what you gave up, the comfort of certainty, the approval of people who could not see what you were building, the safety of a road that had already been cleared. You gave those things up, and the season of building was not easy or quick or clean. But what is coming, what shalam means for your specific story, is not a return to what you had before. It is something larger than the original plan could have ever produced. You are not being restored to where you were. You are being overpaid for what you offered. I need to tell you about someone I want to call a fellow chosen one. I will not use their name, but the details are real. 9 months ago, this person was facing a complete collapse of what they had built. A major contract, the financial center of everything they had constructed, cancelled without warning. The plan they had been executing for years dissolved in a single conversation. And in the silence that followed, they made a choice that I believe you will recognize. They did not immediately rebuild the same structure. They stopped. They deleted social media. They entered 40 days of deliberate quiet, what they described as a frequency alignment, not performing, not explaining, not defending the choices they were making to people who could not understand them. Just building, internally, the next version of what they were meant to create. On day 38, a company they had never contacted reached out to them directly. A 6-figure contract. More than double what they had lost. Not because they had marketed themselves, not because they had rebuilt their visibility, because they had become, in those 40 days, someone the next level of opportunity was looking for. He proved himself in silence before he promoted himself in public. And the appointment was always there waiting for the version of him that the wilderness had formed. Every time the original plan felt wrong, something was saying, bigger. Every time you hesitated to follow someone else's blueprint, something was saying, not yet. Every time you chose the uncertain path over the predictable one, the unseen realm was saying, that one. That pattern was not accidental, not in your life and not in his. And it is not accidental that you are here today, at this specific moment, receiving what you are receiving. But here is what I have not yet told you about the plan you built. The most important part is not what you created, it is what you became in the process of creating it. Because the plan is the visible thing, the formation is the invisible thing, and the invisible thing is what lasts. What you walked through to build that plan, what it did to you, what it stripped from you, what it grew in you, that is the part that carries forward into everything that comes next. And that is what I want to show you now. What you walked through to build that plan, what it did to you, what it stripped from you, what it grew in you, that is the part that carries forward into everything that comes next. And that is what I want to show you now. Because there is something that most people never talk about when they describe leaving a plan behind. They talk about what they lost, they talk about what they gained, but they rarely talk about what had to die. And I am not using that word lightly. There are things that cannot survive the transition from following someone else's design to building your own. Not because they were evil, not because they were mistakes, but because they were built for a version of you that no longer exists. The first thing that had to die was the identity tied to approval. When you were inside the original plan, there was a way people saw you, a role you occupied, a version of you that others could name and point to and feel comfortable with. And when you left that plan, you left that version of yourself behind. The approval that came with it, the nods, the validation, the sense of being legible to the people around you that went quiet. And the silence was disorienting in a way that is hard to describe to someone who has not experienced it, because you were not just losing a plan. You were losing a self that had been constructed around other people's ability to understand you. And here is what I need you to hear about that loss. It was not a tragedy. It was a completion. That version of you had served its purpose. It had carried you to the edge of the threshold, but it could not cross it, because the thing you were being called into was not designed for a self that required external validation to remain intact. It required a self that could stand in the middle of being misunderstood and remain whole. The second thing that had to die was the comfort of predictability. The original plan, whatever its limitations, had a shape you could see, a sequence, a set of expected outcomes. And human beings are wired, deeply and powerfully, for the comfort of knowing what comes next. When you left that shape behind, you entered a space where the next step was not visible until you took the current one. And that space is not comfortable. It is necessary, but it is not comfortable. It asks something of you that predictability never did. It asks you to trust what you sense more than what you can see. And then there was the third thing, the most difficult one to name, the belief that you were supposed to be further along by now, that the deviation had cost you something in terms of time, in terms of positioning, in terms of where you should be relative to some imagined schedule that someone, maybe you, maybe the world around you, had written for your life. This belief is the one that does the most damage in the dark, the one that whispers at 2 a.m. that you chose wrong, that you are behind, that the people who stayed on the original path are ahead. I want to dismantle that belief right now, carefully and completely. You did not fall behind. You changed terrains. And on the terrain you are now building in, the skills you acquired in the wilderness are not liabilities, they are the entire curriculum. The resourcefulness that forms when you have no safety net. The discernment that develops when you have no one to defer to. The clarity that arrives when the external noise stops long enough for the internal signal to become audible. These are not things you can learn in a classroom or acquire on a predictable path. They are forged specifically in the conditions you walked through. And they are exactly what the next level of what you are building requires. Let me give you something practical. I call it the new map protocol, not a technique that requires you to sit down with a journal or rearrange your schedule. This is something you can do right now, wherever you are, in the space of a breath. In your mind, I want you to do 3 things, not physically, just inwardly. First, name, without judgment, one thing you walked away from, not the whole plan, just one thing. Let it be visible in your mind for a moment, not with grief, not with regret, just with clarity. You left that, it is named. Second, name one thing you picked up on the other side of that leaving. Something you now carry that you did not have before, a capacity, a knowing, a piece of yourself that was only formed because you went through what you went through. Let that be visible too. And third, this is the most important one, name, as precisely as you can, one way you are different now than the person who was inside that original plan. Not better, not worse, different, more specific, more formed, more yourself. If a single word comes to mind right now, one word that describes what you became, drop it in the comments. Not for anyone else, as a declaration for yourself, because naming it gives it weight. And what you became in that wilderness deserves to be named. Now, I want to show you what those 3 things reveal when you lay them side by side. You went in needing validation, and you came out carrying your own authority. You went in reactive, and you came out discerning. You went in loud, and you came out powerful. You went in defined by others, and you came out defining yourself. And none of that was random, and none of that was coincidence, and none of that was accident. The formation that happened in the gap between the old plan and the new one was not incidental to your story. It was the story. It was the hidden curriculum of the wilderness, the thing that looks from the outside like stagnation, but is, from the inside, the most active season of becoming a person will ever experience. But here is where I need to slow down. because the formation produced something remarkable in you. And remarkable things, when they begin to become visible, when the new plan starts to show its shape, and the work starts to produce what it was always capable of producing, remarkable things bring with them a fear that most people do not talk about. Not the fear of failure, the other one, the one that arrives when you realize it might actually work. I want to name this directly, because if I do not name it, it will operate below the surface of your awareness and cost you something you have worked too hard to lose. The fear of success, of actual, visible, undeniable success, is not a character flaw. It is not ingratitude. It is not weakness. It is a sophisticated response to a very real weight. And here is what it sounds like on the inside. What if the new plan actually works and I cannot sustain it? What if people see it, see me, and discover something that disqualifies me? What if I become someone in this success that I do not recognize? What if I cross a threshold that changes me in ways I cannot predict and cannot reverse? These are not irrational fears. They are the fears of someone who understands that what they have built carries weight. The people who crashed without fear had no awareness of the stakes. They moved without sensing the gravity of what they were carrying. Your fear, this specific fear, is proof of your wisdom. It means you have felt the weight. It means you are not treating lightly what was not given lightly. And that awareness is not a liability, it is a qualification. Here is a tool I want you to carry. I call it the recalibration check. When fear arrives, specifically this kind of fear, the kind that comes when things are moving in the right direction, ask yourself two questions. Not on paper, just internally, right now, the way you would ask yourself anything honest. The first question is this fear pointing to something I need to address? Something real, a gap in preparation, a relationship that needs attention, a pattern that needs correction before the next level? If yes, the fear is information. Receive it as information and act on it. The second question is this fear simply pointing to something I need to carry? The weight of a calling that is larger than what I have carried before. The gravity of a purpose that has grown. The natural, appropriate trembling of someone standing at a threshold they have never crossed. If the answer is the second one, and for most chosen ones in this season, it is then the instruction is not to eliminate the fear. The instruction is to carry it with dignity, to walk forward with it rather than wait for it to resolve before you move. Because here is what I also need to say, and I want to say it with the full weight it deserves. You are allowed to outgrow the version of you that needed the original plan. You are allowed to be unknown while you build. You are allowed to protect what is forming in you, even from the people who love you and do not understand it. You are allowed to move at the pace that the new plan requires, even when that pace confuses or disappoints the people who are still reading the old instructions. You are allowed to take up space in a design that you created. You are allowed to be exactly what the wilderness formed you to be, without performing a smaller version of it to make other people comfortable. And you do not owe anyone an apology for becoming what you were always meant to be. None of that is arrogance. All of it is permission. And permission, for the specific kind of person who has been carrying what you have been carrying, is not a luxury. It is a foundation. You cannot build on guilt. You cannot sustain what you have created from a posture of constant apology for who you became. You need solid ground under you for what is coming, and this permission is part of that ground. Think back to the navigation system. You remember the one that recalculates when the route changes. There is one more thing about how that system works that I want you to hold on to. When the recalculation is complete, when the new route has been found and confirmed, the system does not keep returning to the old one. It does not keep saying, "But you were supposed to turn there." It releases the original route entirely, without grief, without backward glancing, and it commits fully to the new one. Not because the old route was wrong, but because the new route is where you are. And where you are is where the intelligence of the system is now fully focused. You have recalculated. The new route is confirmed. And everything that formed in you during the recalculation, every stripped away illusion, every hard-won discernment, every capacity built in the silence that is not extra weight you are carrying. That is the road itself. There is one more thing to name before we reach the part of this conversation I have been building toward. And it is the most important thing, because everything we have discussed so far, the neuroscience, the ancient language, the formation, the fear, all of it has been preparing you to receive something that I do not think you have fully allowed yourself to receive yet. Not about the plan, about you, about who you actually are, about what the act of building a new plan reveals about the specific kind of person who does that. Because not everyone can do what you did. Not everyone hears the wrongness and moves toward it instead of suppressing it. Not everyone builds in silence when the external world goes quiet. Not everyone carries the new blueprint through years of formation without abandoning it. The people who do, the people who have always done this, in every age, in every part of the world, they have a name, and that name belongs to you. And it is time for you to understand what it means. Because the most important part of this conversation is not what you built, it is who you are. And I want to show you that clearly, completely, and without reservation right now. Here is what I need you to understand first. The original plan was not replaced by the new one. It was transcended. And there is a difference that matters enormously. Replacement means what came before was wrong, that it was a mistake, that you made a bad choice and corrected it. Transcendence means something entirely different. It means what came before was a flaw, the necessary foundation, the first level of a structure that was always meant to go higher. You did not abandon the foundation. You built on it. You built beyond it. You built something that the foundation was always intended to support and that the foundation alone could never have become. The plan you left behind was not a failure. It was a flaw. And you built a ceiling. And then you built above the ceiling. And what you are standing in right now, this version of your life, this plan you created from scratch, is not the result of running away from something. It is the result of running towards something that the original plan could not contain. And I hear the Father saying, and I speak this as what is being placed on my heart for you. In this moment, I did not write you into a story. I wrote a story into you. What you built was not a deviation from what I prepared. It was the preparation expressing itself. The new plan was not a plan B. It was always the plan. It required the first one to dissolve because what was going to grow could not have grown inside the container you left behind. I was not disappointed when you moved. I was recognized. There you are, I said. There is the one. That is what was said in the unseen realm at the moment you chose to build. Now let me tell you what you are. The first thing you are is a pioneer. Not in the motivational poster sense of that word, in the original, bone-deep sense. A pioneer is the person who goes first, who enters territory that has not been mapped because they are the one who will map it. The pioneer does not go first because they are reckless. They go first because something in them recognizes that the road cannot exist until someone walks it. That is what you did. You walked a road that did not exist yet. And behind you, behind the road you have built, there are people who will be able to travel because of what you created. They will not always know your name. They will not always know that the path was not always there, but they will walk on ground that your faithfulness made possible. The second thing you are is an alchemist. The ancient alchemists were not trying to make gold from lead for the sake of wealth. They were demonstrating a principle that what appears to be one thing can be transformed at its deepest level into something else entirely. That transformation is not magic, it is process. It is the willingness to work with what you have been given, including the things that look like limitations, including the losses and the gaps and the years that looked like nothing was happening, and find the gold inside them. You did that. You took a dissolved plan and produced something more refined from the dissolution. That is alchemy. That is what you are. The third thing you are is a builder, not someone who maintains structures that already exist, someone who creates them, someone who looks at empty ground and sees a foundation before the first stone has been placed. Building is the most invisible work there is. In its early stages, no one celebrates the pouring of a foundation. No one throws a gathering when the walls are at knee height. The building phase is solitary and slow, and requires the kind of commitment that does not need applause to continue. You did that work. In the season when no one could see what was being constructed, you kept building. That is not a skill. That is a calling. The fourth thing you are is a voice. Not someone who speaks loudly, someone who speaks truly. The voice is the person who articulates what others are living but cannot name, who gives language to the experiences that surround them in silence, because no one has found the words yet. The reason this conversation is reaching you today, the reason these specific words are landing in the specific way they are landing, is that somewhere inside you, you recognize what is being said. Not because I am telling you something foreign, because I am giving language to something you have already lived. That is what the voice does for others. Through what you have walked through the new plan you have built, you now carry a language that others do not yet have, and that language is part of what you were built to offer. And the fifth thing you are is a cycle breaker, which means that what you did the choice to leave a plan that no longer fit, to build something new without a map or a guarantee, did not only change your story, it interrupted a pattern. In your family, in your lineage, in the generational inheritance of whoever comes after you, the people who stay inside plans that have stopped fitting, who suppress the wrongness because the alternative is too frightening, they pass that suppression forward. They teach, without meaning to, that the right response to an inner knowing is silence. You did not do that. You listened, you moved, and in moving, you broke the pattern. You changed the inheritance. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most significant things a human being can do. You are commissioned. You are released. You are sent. Not by your own will, though your will has been faithful. Not by human approval, though the right people have begun to see. Commissioned by what you built in the wilderness. Released into who you became when the stripping was complete. Sent into what is coming, and what is coming is shaped by the new plan, the one you created, the one that required everything it took from you, and is now preparing to give back in the measure of shalam. Now let me show you what that looks like in the three areas of your life that are shifting right now. Because this is not abstract. The consequences of building a new plan, of becoming what the wilderness formed, of being commissioned into the next level, these consequences are specific, and I want you to see them. The first area is relationships. What is shifting here is not just who is in your life, it is the nature of what is possible in the relationships you carry. People who are aligned with the version of you inside the original plan will, if they cannot grow alongside you, begin to find themselves at a natural distance. This is not cruelty. This is not rejection. This is the ecosystem reorganizing itself around who you actually are now rather than who you used to be. It will feel like loss in moments. You will question whether you caused it. You will wonder whether the new plan made you cold or distant or difficult to love. What not to do is try to compress yourself back into the shape that made those people comfortable. What to trust is this. Just when you think the reorganization has left you alone, people who speak your language, who understand the specific kind of person you have become, will appear. They will not feel like a consolation prize for what rearranged. They will feel like recognition, like arrival. The second area is purpose. What is shifting here is the clarity of your assignment. For a long time, You may have been doing things that were good, even excellent, but that carried a faint sense of misdirection, like using a precision instrument for a general task. What is coming is a narrowing, not in the sense of limitation, but in the sense of focus. The specific thing you were built for, the thing that sits at the intersection of your formation and your gifts and the road you built, is becoming visible. Not all at once, but with increasing clarity. The instruction here is not to force it into shape before it is ready. The instruction is to continue building and to pay attention to the moments when what you are doing feels most like what you are not, most like what you planned, not most like what others expected, but most like you. Those moments are the compass. Follow them. The third area is provision, and I want to be careful here, because provision is an area where false promises do the most damage, and I am not going to make you one. What I will say is this: the new plan you built is not operating in the same economy as the original one. What I mean by that is that the return on faithfulness to a wilderness-forged path is not proportional in the way that a calculated, conventional plan would be. Remember, shalam, not equivalence, excess. Not what was taken, repaid with the weight that genuine loss deserves. The provision that is aligning with the new plan is not a reward for suffering. It is the natural consequence of a structure that was built on foundations the original plan never had. For those in this season, the instruction is to receive, not to grab, not to manufacture, to receive, with open hands, with the settled knowledge that what is coming was already on its way before you understood what you had built. I want to return for a moment to the gamma frequency, not to reintroduce what we discussed earlier, but to add one thing to it. The research on gamma activity shows something specific about the people in whom it is most naturally elevated. They are not the people who followed the safest, most predictable routes. They are consistently the people who, at some point in their lives, chose the uncertain path, who built new patterns when the old ones stopped fitting, who trusted an inner signal over an external permission. Your gamma did not go dormant in the process of building the new plan. It LED the process. Every moment of clarity in the wilderness, every synchronicity that confirmed you were on the right track, every intuitive leap that produced something that logic alone could not have generated, that was gamma. That was your God-given frequency operating at exactly the level it was designed to operate at. Honor it, protect it, and if you feel the call to recalibrate it further, to restore what the years of survival mode living suppressed, you know where to go. And now, before the final part of what I want to give you today, want you to do something, not physically, not with your hands or your body, just inwardly, in the space of the next few breaths. In your mind, I want you to picture a room. The room is filled with blueprints. Some of them are torn, some are unfinished. Some of them you recognize. They are plans you held at different points in your life, versions of a future that made sense for a while and then stopped. They are all there, laid out, and for a moment, I want you to see them clearly, not with grief, not with regret, just with the clarity of someone who walked through every single one of them and carried what needed to be carried. And now, at the center of the room, there is one blueprint that is still open, still being drawn. The lines on it are not all finished. There are sections that are still taking shape, but it is unmistakably the plan, the one you built, the one you created, the one that no one handed you. And the hand drawing it, look carefully, the hand drawing it is yours. Let that land. Not in your mind. Let it settle into something deeper, into the place that knows, without needing to be convinced, that the plan in the center of that room is real, that it is authorized, that it is already producing what it was built to produce, even the parts of it that are not yet visible to the people around you. That is not a metaphor. That is your life right now. The blueprint at the center of the room, still being drawn. By you. He did not know, on day 38 of his silence, that what was coming was already in motion. The company that called him had already been moved toward him before he knew to expect it. The appointment was already set before he understood that he was being positioned. You do not know what is already in motion on your behalf right now, but the building you have done is already speaking. And what it is saying in the unseen realm, in the places where your life is being arranged, is this: this one is ready. This one can carry it. This one built what they were told was impossible and remained faithful when no one was watching. This one is ready for what comes next, which is exactly where we are going right now. The last thing to receive in this conversation is not more information. You have enough information. The last thing is not more analysis or more framework or more language for what you have already walked through. The last thing is an activation, a sealing, a moment of receiving what the entire wilderness was preparing you to carry. Stay with me for this. We are almost there. And what is here, what is waiting in these last moments, is the part that I believe you came for. Because everything we have covered together today has been building to a single convergence. The neuroscience and the ancient language and the formation and the fear and the identity and the three areas shifting, all of it has been a road leading to this moment, where you stop receiving information about yourself and start receiving yourself, where the distance between what you know and what you are collapses, where the plan you built and the person you became in building it and the calling that commissioned you through the wilderness, where all of those things meet in one place, in you. Right now, here is what I know to be true, with everything I have, about what you have done. Every day you stayed faithful to the new plan, when the original one looked safer, that was not random. Every conversation you did not engage, every explanation you did not give. Every moment you protected what was forming, instead of performing it for an audience that could not yet understand it. That was not random. Every blueprint you burned because it no longer belonged to you, and every line you drew on the new one without knowing if it would hold, that was not random. And this moment, this conversation, this specific intersection of your life and these words, that is not random either. I want to speak now from a place I can only describe as what is being placed on my heart for you. And I ask you to receive it not as my words, but as what I believe is being transmitted through them. I have watched every blueprint you burned. I have seen every night you sat in the silence of what you were building, with no applause and no confirmation and no visible evidence that it would become what you believed it could become. I have witnessed every moment you chose the uncertain path over the safe one, not because you were reckless, but because something in you knew that the safe path was not the right one. And what grew out of that faithfulness, the plan you built, the person you became, the life that is now taking its full shape, has already been received. It was authorized before you understood it. It was blessed before you could see it clearly. And what I need you to hear, in the deepest part of what you carry, you actually did it. Not almost, not partially. You actually did it. The building of the new plan in conditions that did not support it. The faithfulness to an inner knowing in seasons when every external signal went quiet. The refusal to shrink back into a design that was too small for what you were carrying. You actually did it, and heaven took notice. And what is coming now, what is already in motion, is proportional to everything it cost you. Not as compensation, as completion. Now, let me speak over who you are. You are a pioneer, which means the roads you walk become roads others can follow. Let that commission settle on you now, not as pressure, as purpose. You are an alchemist, which means the losses in your story are not wasted. They are raw material. Every hard thing you walk through is already being transformed into something that will produce what gold produces. Let that receive itself inside you. You are a builder, which means the work you have done in invisibility has structural integrity. The foundation you laid when no one was watching can hold what is coming. Let that steadiness anchor you. You are a voice, which means the language you earned in the wilderness is not for you alone. There are people around you, some you know, some you have not yet met, who are living what you have already named. Let that release you into speaking, and you are a cycle breaker, which means the pattern that would have continued the suppression, the silence, the inheritance of smallness ends with you. What comes after you is different because of what you chose. Let that be enough. Let that be more than enough. You are commissioned. You are released. You are sent, not into a plan that someone else drew, into the one you built, the one at the center of the room, the one that is still being drawn by your hand with lines that are just now becoming visible. The navigation is complete. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are not on the wrong road. The recalculation is finished. And what lies ahead on this road is not what the original plan could have reached. It is larger. It is more specific to who you actually are. And it was always where you were going. You actually did it. With no map, you actually did it. In the silence, you actually did it. Against every version of the original plan, against every voice that said you had gone too far, or strayed too wide, or waited too long, you actually did it. And the blueprint at the center of the room is the evidence. Before we close, I want to give you one final tool to carry with you. Not a long practice, a single habit of mind. In the days ahead, when the fear returns, and it will return, because the next level always brings the next version of the fear, come back to the recalibration check. Ask the two questions. Is this fear pointing to something I need to address? Or is this fear simply the appropriate weight of someone carrying something real? And act accordingly. That distinction, practiced consistently, is what keeps the new plan moving forward instead of stalling in the face of its own growth. If the conversation today landed somewhere specific for you, if a particular moment struck you as something you needed to hear, I want to invite you to pass this forward, not as content to be shared, as confirmation to be given. There is someone in your life right now who is sitting inside the silence of a plan they have built, wondering if it was right, wondering if the wilderness was worth it, wondering if anyone can see what they have been constructing in the dark. Give them this conversation, not as an answer, as a witness, because sometimes the most sacred thing one chosen one can do for another is simply say, I see what you are building. Keep going. For those of you who felt drawn to the gamma recalibration we discussed earlier today, the pinned comment holds everything you need, only if you feel led, only if it resonates. And for all of you, whether this is where our conversation ends or where something new begins, carry this with you. The plan you built is already speaking. The formation is already working. The appointment is already set. You do not need to perform it. You do not need to explain it. You do not need to wait for the people who could not see it to finally see it. It is already real. It is already in motion, and it is already enough. The blueprint at the center of the room is yours. Keep drawing.